This video is going to cover the topic of valid claims. Be sure the date and topic are at the top of your page. The essential question for the video is what claims can be considered valid after collecting data? Remember that when we collect data, sometimes we use a sample group to get our results, and that's because it is time and cost effective to do that rather than gathering data from the whole population. But if we're using a small group to represent the whole population, how can we be sure that the conclusions that we come to are valid? And when I use the term valid in this case, what I'm saying is that I want to know that the inferences or the conclusions that we make are true. So let's look at an example. Let's say Malia asked her friends to name their favorite book. She wants to know what people's favorite books are. She asks 15 of her friends that are in her classes, and 9 of her friends tell her that their favorite book is The Hate U Give. So is there a claim to be made here that 60% then, because that's 9 out of 15, 60% of students consider The Hate U Give their favorite book? Well, probably not. I would say no. And here's why. Malia didn't use a random sample. She only talked to 7th grade students, and she only talked to her friends, right? So we can't assume or infer that the data represents anyone other than the friends that she has. From her research, she could make a valid claim, but what we just had up there is not the claim she can make. We can't say that 60% of all students consider The Hate U Give their favorite book. A valid claim she could make is that 60% of Malia's friends specifically consider that their favorite book. That's the only claim that is a valid claim from her research. Let's say that the principal here at school wants to know what electives students want next year. So he pulls the name of 100 students at random to vote on a new elective and asks for their top choice. 82% say they would like to have knitting as a new elective. Can we make a claim, as the principal might, that 82% of students want to take knitting? Is that a valid claim? In this, I would actually probably say yes. I think this is a valid claim up here, and here's why. The principal had a random sample. It was across all grades. He or she didn't just ask what the 6th graders thought, and the sample included a sizable portion, right? If the school has 600 people, asking 100 of the students is asking a large portion. I would say yes, that is valid indeed. That's something that they can definitely infer or conclude from their research. What if Mr. Atkinson does a survey and he asks his class if they're Blazer fans? So he asks all the students in his block class, and he discovers that 93% of the students he surveyed are Blazer fans. So then from that information, he makes a claim that 93% of students at our school are Blazer fans. The question is that valid? So if you think about what he did, he asked his students, they said that they were Blazer fans, so he said, sure, 93% of students are Blazer fans. I would say that this is not a valid claim. The reason I think that this is not valid is that this was not a random sample. He only asked the kids in his class. It's not across the demographics. We can't infer that all students are Blazer fans when he only asked people who are in 7th grade. And it's not without bias, right? Maybe he promotes the Blazers in class, so that's why his class has a lot of Blazer fans, and that might not translate to all classes. So why is it important that we double check that people's claims are valid? Well, because people use these valid claims from sample data to make inferences, and if the claim is valid, you can kind of predict information about a larger population. So for example, if we properly select a random group of 7th graders, let's say maybe there's 25 7th graders, just a small group here, and we ask them what they want to have at lunch next week, and we get some results, the cafeteria staff could use that to infer how many of each lunch to prepare for the whole population. If they collect the data and their claim is valid, then we can use this information to figure out how many lunches to prepare for the 200 seventh graders. So for example, the pizza here was 9 out of 25. And so if we want it out of 200, I know that that group is 8 times as large, so 9 times 8 is 72. 72 pizzas would need to be made. And I can infer that if 5 out of 25 people wanted a veggie dog, and that means my population is 8 times larger, then I would need 8 times as much here. So I would need 40 veggie dogs. And likewise, if 11 out of 25 people said they wanted chicken nuggets, then if I scale that up times 8, then that would be 88 chicken nuggets, right? I can use this claim to calculate this for my 200 seventh graders. It is important to note, however, that this claim is valid just for my 7th grade because that's the only information I gathered. This would not be valid for the whole school. There's no reason to believe that the 7th graders represent the voices of 6th or 8th grade. We cannot use this data to infer for the rest of the school. And that's the essential question of this video, right, is what claims can be considered valid after collecting data. And so you have to think that your population must be reflected in your sample group for it to be valid. So be sure to have your notes and questions in class. There's no question that you need to solve before coming into class, so just bring your notes and any questions you might have for me to class.